going on?
Halfway.
Michael.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show. So there's a Real Science episode 23, which is one of my favorite numbers. I'm a fan. How you doing? Before we get too deep into it, let me just say Liminal's here to show us more of the crystal work, exotic propulsion in here. Jeremiah's also been working on. Karen Earthling, I'm glad you're here as well. Esoteric Gold, Simon, but also Michael Boyd. And I know Michael he's pressed for time, so it'd be great if you wanted to show us some of this crazy, amazing stuff that you've been working on, which just blew my mind. I saw the hiddenworld.co website, and maybe you want to share some of the stuff that this is. What's all this about?
Oh, do you want to load
Pull
it
that
or
back
should I? Sorry, Xirtus.
Whatever's easiest, you can show it. Yeah.
You mean I can show it? Just go present. Oh, you got it.
Oh,
you got it.
Yeah, if you want to.
Just go back to the. Just show. You can show it. That's fine. So it's what's called quantum imaging. It's kind of cool the way you guys were showing this kind of multiplanar image coming in. It was it's kind of exactly what is going on here. And if you what we're going to look at first here is this twister, and if you see it, that's an image of the twister. If you center it there in the page.
Testing.
A little bit.
Hold on. Hi, Sushko.
A little bit higher. No, the other way.
Other way? Sorry.
No, go down.
This way. There you go.
Yeah, that's good. Stop there. So we have the twister here up in the upper left corner. And what we're doing here is what this device does is it images. It's a multiplanar imager, and what it does is it looks at the different spectral characteristics of what's going on, and it's kind of like it's a hidden view. And if you look in the twister here, what's going on is what's called space-time metrics engineering. And it's a natural phenomena that occurs, like with the UFO Tictoc, we could see that effect. That was an artificial creation of space-time metric engineering. But in nature, in weather, as an example, or another example is an X point or a flux rope with the sun and the earth will form what's called an X point. That's another example of this kind of, it's a weather phenomena. In this case, space weather is affecting Earth weather. But in this twister, what's going on is you have areas of space-time that are getting red shifted and areas that are getting blue shifted. And in blue shifting, that's where you have the expanded space-time. Space-time is less dense, let us say. In red shifting, the space-time is more dense. And so what happens is now you see these, you see what on the lower left, you see what looks like a kind of like a blue jet.
Yeah.
And then on the right, you see a pairing there going on. You see it's kind of like what do they call it? It's kind of like stitched together, right? Twinning, it's called. That's what's going on
Looks
the right.
like DNA.
So, in any case, this is an example. Now, if you go back and then go to the machine, and I'll explain. Go to industrial one there. Now, what we have here before you start it, don't start it yet. Let me explain what's going on here. Is we have these two magnets, niobium magnets, powerful niobium magnets. They're like a plane, and they're on 100-ton press. And what we're doing is we're pressing these two magnets together with the 100-ton press, and then we're imaging the video And you can see what's going on with these space-time effects with the 100-ton press. And on the, again, we'll be seeing this red shifting and blue shifting. Go ahead and start it, please. Now, if you look below, there's these where you have like a green ball and a red ball below the press. That's a dipole. There's a dipole down below, and so it's kind of cool what this this does. So that's the new gig I got.
Interesting. So you're basically, so what is the deal with the electromagnetic phenomena and like this? Is it a torsion field, or what are you trying to find out about? And it was looking at twisters, tornadoes.
Well, twisters, I'm basically trying to see the effects of matter on space-time around it.
Right. Interesting. And so what kind of applications, what kind of things are they interested in if they wanted you to look into this for?
Well, they have this project that I'm going to be working on is they're doing it's Blind Frog Ranch. You guys know about Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Which is in Utah.
So lion frog is like a similar thing?
A blind frog.
Blind frog.
It's Blind Frog Ranch. And now I went out there, just went on a tour of the ranch, and I was looking on the ground, and I found all these meteor balls laying on the ground. So my hypothesis is that there's something there.
Interesting.
That's under the ground. And so what we'll be doing, I imagine, is looking at using our tech to see if we can figure out where there might be something buried.
Very interesting.
Is it lightweight enough that you can put it on a drone?
Yeah.
What's that?
Is it lightweight?
Well, no.
What
We're doing, what we're doing is, so I don't know I'm not really at liberty to talk about the details of what's going on with the Blind Frog Ranch, but
so is it like a LiDAR or ground penetrating?
No, it's not. It doesn't actually. It's looking at the imaging. It's taking that imaging that's collected. So, for example,
so just a normal camera will work.
We get a camera and we get a picture, like
good job of sending
a photo or something of this area, and then we can figure out from that. We can basically run the spectral characteristics of the thing and figure out, what's
the blue soil?
A blue what?
So the Ascending Ancient saying that Blind Frog has blue soil.
Oh, I don't know.
This is currently an image of the sun, though. So essentially, it's like AI analytical analysis of imaging of sites that you're working with.
Right, like that, like the example I showed you with the twister. It shows like where energy centers are. It can show like where there's a void there.
The massive EVO events, though, these exotic vacuum objects, as Bob Greenier goes into with Martin Fleischmann, as well as Ken Shoulders with Hutchinson's work. But it's these OdySee extremes. It's going from macro to micro on all the scales, and you're showing that it's also bending space-time essentially the same way.
Well, yeah, it lets you see where the space-time is changing from the normal. And you can, and the applications are many.
All right, but like, so it's kind of showing that it's going the spike into the blue and the red, the hot and the cold. And you're saying it's also space-time itself that are taking these geometries with it.
Well, I guess the context for me is I met Steve Leah, that is the inventor, and he ran some of these on the Tictoc video, and I was impressed with the results. So since then, he's done a lot of work on the UAPs, and it's made it easy to resolve if it's a UAP or not, because it basically affects the space-time around it. It's the best way to put it. Like there was that Agila UAP, the ball that was like going in and out of the water. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. You showed it with the Leak Project Rex interview, right? Presentation.
So basically, he ran that, and we could see that there was actually something going on under the water with the object. So it wasn't like an optical illusion or anything. There was actually something going on that was changing it. It's kind of cool. You could see the energy. It was like a pump. Looked like a pump. Yeah, so there's the page, the front page where you can see the team. There's Steve. Oh, and then there's Val. And Val has this book she put out that she wrote that I just finished reading, which is really good. It's called Levi's Warning: The Aliens' Arrival, Earth Shift, and the Worldwide Deception. That it's pretty good. So if you guys are interested, check it out. Levi's Warning. So
the link in the private chat, and we'll check her out for sure. This is some awesome new work that you're involved with, Mr. Boyd. I'm looking forward to it.
That looks pretty cool.
Me too. But we'll see how it develops. I'm kind of feeling happy about it. So I wish I had more time, guys, but
thank you for sharing that. That was pretty interesting.
Okay, you guys have a good one.
Yeah, thank you. Blessings, Mr. Boyd, and to your wife, and thank you. Look forward to your work to come.
So, Liminal, I know you had some stuff to show on the crystal. Do you want to pop up the display and share some of the stuff that you've been working on?
Yeah, I actually wanted to show off something that looks like a pretty great specimen, and overall it is, but it's a fine example of how finicky it can be when you're growing your crystals at home and you don't have a temperature-controlled environment. So I'm just going to switch on my cam here. Hopefully you kind of see that curtain background. And as you can see,
wow, it's
this looks...
It's so beautiful. It's really, really...
It really...
Hand-grown.
Grown, homegrown, you know, homegrown. Yeah. And I'm gonna highlight now the damage from a 5-degree Fahrenheit increase in the ambient temperature with a pen light here. Hopefully you guys can see it. See that kind of curved line?
Oh, and it's just completely...
Absolutely, yeah.
Right across it. But it's just in that...
But everything else about it...
Yeah.
Everything else about it looks fantastic.
Tell us how you did it.
Yeah, how did this problem occur
So
in the growth?
you see how it has this nice thickness to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the thickness of this was determined by the height or the depth, if you will, of the solution that was poured into the container. I
Oh, so that's
grew
just
the
about
crystal in.
the
Yeah,
height
so
of the
this,
liquid.
yeah,
Okay.
what you're looking at right here, this thickness, that was about the height of the solution. The solution
Interesting.
might have had a depth that was slightly more, but over the course of days,
Evaporated, yeah.
as it grew from the seed crystal, a little evaporation occurred. And so there was some diminishment in that depth. But overall, you want to get a nice specimen that has a thickness like this.
What's in the solution?
The solution here, and I apologize for not prefacing this. Yes, what we've been working with a lot lately, me and Jeremiah, is refining the formula for growing Rochelle salts at home. And to the best of my knowledge, and we've taken a good look out there on the internet, we can't find anything that looks quite this great. And it's just proof that
Like
you
glass,
can do
yeah.
this. You can do this at home with with just like a Pyrex bowl, a piece of glass, and a simple heating element, some Rochelle salts.
You started with a small Rochelle salt crystal.
Yeah, this was originally like a very small seed, and let's see if I can find it on the back here. I wonder if I can highlight this.
What sort of a solution was it? Again, so you use like a saline solution or sodium?
Okay, so yeah, the solution is potassium, sodium, tartrate.
Okay.
Your Rochelle balanced mixture.
Tartarian tartrate, fantastic.
Absolutely. And it's highly piezoelectric, and unlike quartz, which is very, very specific about the lattice alignment in order to get a right piezoelectric response, this stuff seems to respond well and evenly along any of its axes.
Well, TechSpread is asking, like, with no flaws in the interior, and she demonstrated, and that's actually what was cool. This is demonstrative of this one change to the growth, and you were saying this was from temperature, or what did you say happened?
It was about a 5 up to a 7 degree Fahrenheit increase.
Maybe you can bring it just a little bit closer.
Yeah, I will. Let me maneuver my hand here.
And that light was awesome, by the way. Also,
yep, bringing it back in. So
yeah,
you see that kind of curve happening.
Right. So can you essentially or potentially cut that or polish or grind it off?
Absolutely. What I've been doing is sanding them down, and that works really, really nicely. You can keep on using the same piece of sandpaper, but you only want to go over the same area once when you're sanding it down. Like you don't.
But they can grow a perfect crystal. The question really is more interesting because this crystal shows you what happens if the temperature changes even ever so slightly. How long was the temperature changed for that this happened?
I would say that, and it happened pretty quickly because we went from winter weather to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Kind of more like spring
weather.
It was like
90 degrees one day a week ago, right? Or
yeah, we had a bit of a heat wave roll in, and all of a sudden we were dealing with, it was 5 to 7 degrees warmer indoors. For sure. And so initially it started out great the first 2 to 3 days, and then in the final 2 to 3 days of this crystal growing, this Rochelle salt crystal. Unfortunately, as it was hitting the surface of the solution, right about the time for it to evaporate, that temperature change occurred. And you can see, right, what I'm highlighting here, that is from a change in the ambient temperature of the environment. Otherwise, overall, looks like an excellent specimen, but it just goes to show that these minute changes, when you're growing your own crystals at home, it happens. It happens even when you got a really good recipe down, and there's all kinds of changes you have to adjust to as well. If you're thinking about, how saturated is your solution, what's the surface area that you're growing it out over, what's the side of your seed crystal. These are all considerations that people that are growing their crystals at home are going to come up against. And so, yeah, it's okay to show the imperfection. It's good for people to see how these little changes can, make all the difference between perfect and not quite, but still pretty great.
But also, you can imagine using temperature or other qualities to affect the
process of discovery
in the angle of the growth of the crystal.
With water, like the different temperatures too of it forming, and then when it freezes as well, and the different crystallization processes that happen at different temperatures. It's very fascinating stuff. Do you also, or if you have bioluminal, some of the other ones you've grown to show in comparison by chance?
Are you talking about some of those fluorescent crystals?
And
if you can give me just a minute, I can relocate where I currently am. So I'm just gonna go off cam here. Yep, I'm just gonna go off cam here. Maybe Jeremiah might want to demo the signal that he can drive music through now with some of his specimens.
Right.
Yeah, dang,
People are asking what are these for, and it's both battery purposes for using some of the crystal, and now you're also going to show.
Jeremiah, your screen is pitch black, which is mysterious as all heck. Don't get me wrong. There we go. Oh, and these are crystals? They're either tarot cards or crystals. What's going on here?
You can really see the
so these are some of the crystals pulled out of
wow, that's huge.
recent batches.
Bruh.
Oh, they are. Some of them are absolutely huge, and some of them are absolutely, beautiful. So they have like nice optical properties.
So these are a little bit more along the lines of, the temperature was kept the same. It was around wintertime, so you could have like a controlled temperature the whole time. Is that the deal?
Right. I mean, we try these in a variety of different environments in order to really optimize the solution. The saturation is the most finicky part of it all. Saturation is everything with these, having the right ambient temperature and having exactly the right amount of solute or Rochelle salt mixture is the key to whether or not they're going to work. For example, and I'll just show this if I can pick it up very delicately. So this was about as thick as my finger growing from the bottom there. And this is all that was left. And what happened is it was an average of 77 degrees inside the house, and it went up to an average of about 84. And that decayed this crystal over the course of about maybe a week and a half from being thicker or about as thick as my finger into this thin little sliver that we see now, which is actually kind of amazing. I think this is going to make a fantastic piece of acoustic equipment, but just because it's so thin and it's kind of tapered towards the edge, I'll be able to tune it that way. But not at all what I was expecting.
What do you mean by acoustic equipment? How are you going to use the crystal for acoustic equipment?
Well, let me go ahead and show you.
Bruh.
So over here, I've got one of my old iPhones hooked up, playing some Nintendo music, Legend of Zelda. This is a little 12-volt audio amplifier running at 12 volts. And then wires on the output of the audio amplifier are going to this impedance matching transformer in series with a coupling capacitor, 3 microfarads polypropylene, 250 volts rated. Even though it's only 12 volts input on that, it's just to kind of get a better impedance matching ratio. So there's a neon bulb in series with the transformer, and then that's connected with an clip, this metal plate, which is just a metal cover for some electronic gear that was underneath it at one point, and a piece of copper foil that's attached to the output of the transformer. So this is the crystal I'll be testing with, and I want to point out the importance of the defects. So there's lots of little striations and puck marks here. These are actually really ideal because what they do is they spread out the pinpoint noise and distribute it over a wide area, which allows it to produce some lower frequencies, surprisingly. So give me just 1 second here and I will get her started. So first thing I want to do is just put this piece of glass on here. This piece of glass is roughly about the same thickness as that crystal. It's a little longer, but it doesn't matter. And so I'll hit play. So we're not really hearing much except for some just noise of the vibration of the plate. If But now I'm going to go ahead and set that Rochelle crystal on there. And I'll press down.
Oh no, this video is going to get claimed by Nintendo.
So that sound is actually coming out of the crystal. And it acts like a little speaker as this plate is.
How do you know that it's coming out of the crystal?
Oh, because like I said, I can put anything else on here. I can put a real piece of quartz on here. Quartz is known to be piezoelectric. But if I press down here on this piece of quartz, it's not generating that kind of response. And I used a piece of glass that was just a little thinner than that Rochelle crystal. This is obviously a lot thicker, but neither of them are anywhere near as responsive.
Cool.
And that's how I know for sure it's coming out of there. So let me just go ahead and set my elbow on that so I can get some kind of connection. There we go. See how loud I can get this. There we go. Yeah, now it's actually like reasonably loud. And it makes a pretty fantastic speaker. The last time I seen anybody even try this was Rimstar, and that was like 10 years ago. The audio quality was so bad, to say the least. You couldn't actually tell if it was playing music or static.
That was pretty good. Oh, yeah, I knew it was going on.
He had to use a huge microwave oven transformer as an audio matching transformer just to get some kind of impedance match. And that little transformer comes out of a printer. It's perfect for this.
We have to connect like the Tesla coil speakers, the plasma flame speaker, and your crystal speaker, and have like a little rave symphony.
You know,
yeah, play Zelda. Yeah, that's great.
The exact same thing. I'm not even kidding. I was literally thinking about having the Tesla coil set up, sitting right next to that thing.
Right. But you're saying though that the audio is limited, right? It's not going to be good quality. Like there's a range of.
Well, I don't have it set up. I would have to connect all those various systems, and each of them has their input. So I need.
Then there would be you could have like a multi-crystal system that would make better sound. That would sound as good as a speaker, perhaps.
Actually grow some special acoustics, custom electromechanical systems that I'll be using as speakers, because I want to really hear like how good can I make a Rochelle crystal sound.
That's interesting.
Because when I understand both how to grow crystals from scratch by controlling the lattice and the structure, and I can give them the right properties that we specifically need. The whole crystal research got started. Go ahead.
Have you ever thought about putting a voltage through while you're growing the crystal, see what it does?
Absolutely. You're the fourth person to ask me that. And I mentioned it the first time I went on and talked about these things. That was something I intended to do. I'm going to use a glass bowl, as I always do, one of those Pyrex bowls. And the only way I can think to do is to place a metal plate on the underside of it, or maybe even a piece of copper foil that's, self-adhesive on the underside of the bowl. And then just simply electrify it like a little Leyden jar, letting the salt solution act as the other electrode, and that way there will at least be a surface charge. And so as the crystal does grow off that, the surface charge should get embedded or trapped in it. Say if I suck out a certain quantity of electrons and dispose them on the underside of the metal plate underneath the glass dish, then there should be less electrons in there. So would that affect crystalline binding structures? My guess is it should. And the second thing is, of course, we're going to have a monstrous freaking magnetic field under that thing too while it's growing. So that's another test that'll be happening just in a couple of days.
That'd be cool.
It would be interesting to see, like, so earbuds, you don't have to go so giant. You could actually grow the tiniest earbuds perhaps by having crystal
stuff. I've made some really small ones. I'm glad you mentioned that. I have some really, really tiny ones. They're like half the size of your fingernail, and they sound great.
That's a pretty interesting idea. I like it. Well, do you want to show anything else, or is Liminal? Are you ready to show?
She has a much better connection and camera setup, so she can go in there and tell you a little bit about how we're now growing these things, and the setup I just put together last night. She can walk you through it because she's got the cam out there. So let me just.
I'm in the area. I'm just clearing a little bit more space here, and I have my tripod. So hopefully, this time there's enough space.
You'll probably want to be able to move around anyways, though.
I'm sorry?
You'll probably want to be able to move around anyways, so I don't know if you need the tripod.
I just, I'm going to turn on the cam here. There's going to be some light adjustment going on. All right, so just want to make sure everything's in view. So first I'll show this one. This has rhodamine 6 in it. And this is a dye that fluoresces when you expose it to blue or ultraviolet light. So I'm going to turn off the light here. And I have this handheld UV light. And you can see how it's fluorescent green. And what we were trying to do is see if we could grow that into the crystal. And so far,
it seems like
yeah.
the crystal actually it pushes out any kind of impurities that are in the liquid itself as it crystallizes, which is one of the things we were kind of expecting. But the imperfections in the crystal end up holding or trapping the impurities, which means that when those things do get harvested out of there, which I'll be doing in probably a day or two, the cracks and the stress marks will actually glow. And since I'll be using those as speakers, I think it'll look really freaking cool.
And you can control that with temperature.
In general.
Yep.
Sorry about that clink there. All right, just trying to get this in a hell of a lot more closer. Can you guys see?
On the inside, right at the center there, you'll see a bit of a green glow of the trapped rhodamine 6.
Like, you could actually just sell those as is online and make a boatload of money. Yeah, that is really cool.
Oh, Angel Wings asks, looks like a fun experiment, but what's the purpose? Nothing replaces a real, true, raw crystal, though. Well, we can explain again.
Batteries, and that they just used it as a speaker, right? These are two different things, as well as.
Yeah, so he showed using it as a speaker, and then again, we've seen the use of this for batteries, and we're trying to experiment to get decent enough batteries, and also learning the qualities of the crystals necessary along the way.
If you're using a natural seed
Liminal,
crystal,
by the way,
does that count?
Yep, I cut my video out unless people want to continue to see the like really fun green going on, you know. But I thought everyone had a nice view of that. Hopefully, you guys are all.
I really want some close-up shots with a macro lens.
Yeah.
So also Esoteric Gold. Thank you, by the way, Liminal. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Esoteric Gold. I know you were holding up a crystal a second ago. You've got some stuff. Did you want to share a bit about what you've been working on?
No, it was just a story. I ended up going to southern Utah this weekend. And there was a little festival that I ran past, and some person from Hurricane, their family member died, and they had a ton of crystals. And so they were selling them for super cheap. And I bought a few of these. They're 2.5 inches wide and, 6 inches long. And they're just regular crystals.
Holy cow. Oh, man. Did you get
a score? That's awesome.
Guess how much I got this one for? $10.
Ooh.
Man.
That's
and the other one for
amazing.
13,
wow, what type of crystal is that? I'm sorry, what type of crystal is it?
Quartz crystals.
Quartz. Look
that's
how
quartz?
clear that is. And that's a natural one. That's not synthetic either. Look at that.
It looks like Herkimer.
Yeah, they're just regular.
It looks like a really huge Herkimer. They normally don't get that big.
That's a quartz crystal.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was fun.
That's epic. Mike Faraday Research has joined us. Did you want to share some things? Can you hear us, Mike?
Mr. Mike? Mike and Mike, right? And
also, in the meantime, Taryn Earthling is also with us. Whoever gets to the gun first, let's see what happens.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
I'll let Mike know. Just kind of testing a new microphone and headset thing here, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it sounded good, brother.
Yeah.
Does it sound okay?
Sounds great. So what have you been working on recently?
Well, I've been working on the RPG Renegade, and did quite a bit of testing in the last week, and I'm getting some really, really encouraging results. So yeah, just working on that.
the Adams motor as well, and then the batteries too.
Not so much the batteries. I've just been working on the generator more or less.
I can't wait till I can run my phone off of some sort of a power generator, or at least eventually get like the washing machine like yours. So whatever we can do to help. So do you have anything you can show us, or is it all audio?
You know what? I just came home from a birthday party.
I'm just uploading Mike's latest video here.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, Bernie, pull that up. Awesome.
So what I tried to do in this video was show what the watt output of the light is if I hook it directly to the house. So I know exactly what wattage it takes to run it. Then I attached it to the generator and did all the load test on it. And my efficiency is over 2,400%. So that was pretty mind-blowing right there.
Really? 25x?
2460.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how are you? So from there, are you able to use alternating current and put that into something you can use, or what's going on with
it's
that?
a pulse DC, right? So it kind of is like a poor man's AC, right? And due to the motor and how it operates, it runs at a higher frequency. Therefore, I can do the same job with a lot less power.
Interesting. So here's the new video.
Mike, do you want me to play it with the sound off and you talk over it, or play it with the sound on?
You can play with the sound on. That's fine.
But
and I'm doing some testing. So what I've done is I've taken the watt light LED bulb and I've hooked it up to a watt-hour meter. So we can set the thing straight on how much it's actually consuming. So it's telling me right now, and it's showing 8.3 watts. So let's go switch it over to voltage. So we got 120 volts, 120.7 at 60 hertz. Okay. So, and it says it's drawing 0.097 amps to run the bulb. All right. So write those numbers down. So we'll do it one more time. 8.2 watts. Okay. On the high, 8.3. And then we're going to go to, don't worry about the kilowatt hours, 120.8 volts at 60 hertz. So write that down. And then the next test, I'm going to hook up the same bulb to my system, and then we'll take some meter readings from the machine itself. So stay tuned. Okay, so here we go. We got everything hooked up. There's the light bulb there. Now, there's a third wire on it, and I'll explain that in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the motor spun, get it going here. So let me start to hold the camera with one hand and get it spinning here. Let's get it going. So you can see the light is going. All right. I get this thing running good. When I get it up to speed, I'm going to attach that third wire. I'm going to loop it back to the battery itself. That's the idea of the test. All right, so it's at 48.21 volts right now. All right. All right, I got it flying now. It's going real good. It's going on. It's about pushing 2,000 RPM. It's going good, but it's going to work even better as soon as I attach this third wire. So the third wire is the positive lead coming off the output. So I've got a diode facing in this direction, so it can't go back to the light. So I'm going to hook that up. All right, we're going to let it run here for a minute, and I'll let you see what the numbers are. So the one on this side here is what's going in.
Yes, Dallas, that is a homemade electromagnetic generator, more or less.
I'm trying to focus a little better on it. So it's 0.03 watts right now. 15.11 amps per hour. 48.11 volts per minute. All right. And it's pumping out 734 watts per hour. That's what's going into the motor. Okay. All right. Now, the important thing is, let's look at the current draw. This is the big one. How much current the system is being drawn. So get that up in a second there. Okay, amp hours, 0.007 amps. Now the watts is 0.3 watts. That's what's coming from the battery to run the system, to run the light. As you can see, the light is fully lit. So we know by the test with the watt hour meter coming out of the wall, it's 8.2 watts. All right. So we're going to work out those numbers in a minute. So it's very important. So 48.13 volts out at 0.3 watts. Okay, so 0.3 watts. But the current is more important when I'm worried about how much current. And it's telling me it's 0.007 amps. That's how much current's coming out of the battery to feed this motor to make this light run. But I've taken part of that current and now I've fed it back into the positive of the battery. All right, very important. All right, so let's focus in again on this. All right. So I'm more worried about what's coming out for voltage and how much current. So there it is, 0.007 amp hours. So volts times amps gives you watts. That gives you the how much watts is coming out of this battery bank to make this system run. All right. So we take the watt. We can pretty well decide that it's 8 watts. I would say a very, very steady 8 watts of power coming out to run this. I know it needs 8 watts to make it run like this. Okay. So we're going to take that wattage there, and then we're going to divide it divided by the watts going in. I'm going to put it through the efficiency calculator, and you're going to see how efficient this motor actually is. Because the watt hour meter didn't lie at the wall. Like when I did it on the wall of the house, it says 8.2 watts. This thing is fully illuminated. It looks exactly the same way as it did, but it's running on a different science. It's running on a higher frequency, and it's running on a different current and everything. So this is mimicking what the wall's doing, but a hell of a lot more efficient. So just give me a minute here. I'm going to work out the numbers. Okay, so I've crunched the numbers down. So the motor is taking 0.338 watts to run this light bulb. Okay, so you take the watts in versus the watts out, and the efficiency equals 2,460%. This motor is running at 2,400% efficiency, because even if it were 8 or even 7, I'm still over 2,000% efficient. I can't lie. The numbers are telling me 0.007 amps coming out of the battery, right? Times that by the voltage. So voltage times amps, so 48.11, say, times that by 0.007. All right, that works out. I worked it on my calculator. I got 0.338 watts. So the battery is providing 3.338 watts of power to make this 8.2 watt hour light run. So I crunched it down to 8 watts, okay, give or take. It's still showing me well over 2,400% efficiency. So call it what you want. These are the numbers I'm getting. I showed you in real time exactly what it is. And I know exactly what this light bulb will do. And you can tell it's fully illuminated. It's blinking a little bit. I want to get the system higher than what it's going as far as speed. Working on that. Yeah, if I were to go to a lower wattage thing, there wouldn't be any blinking at all. It'd be solid. But that's rated at 9 watts, but I proved that it's not 9 watts. It's actually 8.2 watts. That's at 120 volts AC at 60 hertz. Okay, so I'm using a different method to get the same result. So this thing's only requiring 0.338 watts to run this, to actually make this light run. So call it what you want, guys. These are the numbers I have. I'm sure I'm going to get a shitload of.
So seeing as we just looked at, his Bedini system, this is an official Bedini 10 coiler. You can see that it bears the Bedini logo and his little patent tab. So each of these are, I believe they're decafilar coils. To take a look, see how many wires do we have coming out here? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, these are octafilar. Sorry, yes, these are all octafilar coils, and they are shoved full of the dirtiest ones on the bottom. I'll show you another one over here.
Jeremiah, how many watts does it take to run it?
Oh, I have not even finished putting it together. Honestly, it's been sitting like this for years. So the story is, this older gentleman bought this thing, had some health issues, never was able to put it together. He followed Bedini's schematics. I came in to troubleshoot it, looked at the schematics, and seen that there was a wiring error which would literally cause this thing to be incapable of functioning in the way that he set up the schematics. And they come with these boards, but you have to make a modification to these boards. So they've kind of been sitting in this box. So there's a neon bulb across every single one of these NPN Darlington transistors. And so they're the larger TO247. No, they're even larger than the 247 package. But yeah, there is a new 247 replacement. But they're banked up like this. So 8 of them per coil. So there are 10 of these modules in total. And they all need to be modified because they're put together based on the Bedini schematic, which absolutely destroys this thing if you run it. But I'm pretty sure that was intentional because he sold these kits. I think they were like $5 or $6 grand when they were originally coming out, and I believe like less than probably 100 of them were ever sold. If you take a look for the Bedini 10 coiler, the official kit that he sold with his brother, there's almost none of this stuff still around, and you find very few videos of people who own these actual machines. And so they have these tapered neodymium magnets in this solid 1-inch thick 24-inch diameter, I think it is, aluminum wheel, and you can see that tapered plastic insert. Well, right behind it is a magnet that's as thick as from this point down the edge to the equivalent distance on the other edge, and then this insert holds it in place. So you can see he really thought of everything when he was designing this thing. Each of these coils, they can slide back and forth on these mounts, so you can adjust the height. The top here clamps down when these two bolts are set in. This is all nylon, by the way, all non-magnetic, non-ferrous stuff. These are nylon washers and nylon bolts too, along with a laser cut acrylic 7/8 inch thick backplate. So like, yeah, a lot of effort was put into this thing, and it spins. I mean, it spins incredibly easy considering that this entire machine weighs right around 100 pounds. The amount of effort it takes to actually get it going is incredible.
What are you going to get it tried it to do? What are you going to try to do with it?
Much like what Mike is doing with his replications of some of Bedini's work. These are pulse motors, and so what they allow you to do is add a variable into the metric of how your motor is generating power or producing torque. And so there's going to be an exchange because this thing is called a motor generator, as in if it acts sort of like, well, you can consider it like a buck converter or like a boost converter, depending on how you set it up. But it can exchange voltage and it can exchange time. So it can take input power for 95% of the time for each of these coils to accelerate the magnets into position. But then when the magnets come by, here's what's really interesting. And this is the part that I don't think people really talk about with Bedini's system or with all of these, various magnet motor, pulse motor systems. It's the variability of the core material in terms of the BH curve, its hysteresis, and its saturation. So let me explain. Metal can only hold so much magnetic flux. In the case of pure iron, which is about as magnetic as you're going to get for iron, it has an incredibly high permeability, which means that the amount of magnetic field lines that it can hold, or the amount of field amplification that it can produce before it actually saturates, is remarkably large compared to, say, if you had a coil of wire that had 20 turns on it, just sitting there without a core. You might measure a Gauss of, say, 50 Gauss or something like that. You put an iron core into that and put the exact same amount of current and voltage through that coil, and now you're getting about 250 to 300 Gauss. Now, why the amplification? Well, it's because all the little domains inside the iron can flip around and align with the magnetic field in the wire, and because this actually accumulates over time, meaning that it takes several milliseconds for this effect to build up, it's now accumulated all of the original current that was flowing through the wire. So it's got 100% of that magnetic field. And then it's also got the magnetic field from the next, say, few milliseconds all stacked on top of each other in one single moment because it's aligned those domains. And what happens in the Bedini system is the coil is polarized in one direction. It's already trying to magnetize the core so that it's attractive to the pole magnets that are swinging around. But when the pole magnets come by, they push the core material over the saturation point. And what that does is cause it to suddenly release any other domains that were not perfectly aligned and slams them into alignment, which means that when they collapse, when that magnet moves away and the circuit shuts off and it collects the back EMF, now what's happening is it's added the energy from the oversaturation of the VH curve and giving you a tiny little moment of time, a couple of milliseconds, during which you can transition from producing torque to generating power. And if you get the transition and the timing exactly right when that core hits saturation and when it desaturates, you can capture the extra energy from all of the nuclear magnetic moments inside the core.
So that's the over unity aspect of the key part of collecting it instead of wasting it, correct?
Right. And one of the ways that you'll know it's working is the core will actually cool down.
Yes, right? And that is such a common theme and part of these over unity generator or systems is that they're endothermic cooling in the environment, taking energy and heat out of it, as opposed to our current AC inefficient ones that heat up and take more energy to run. They're the exact opposite, and that's why they're often cooling things. And when I've noticed quite frequently, even now that the spring's coming and we've had some warmer weather, I'd still been plugging in my electrolysis and my coils in there, and the process that happens with the coils and whatever's going on, it's like the room always gets colder, and it's just like it's cold. It's like why I'm wearing a hoodie right now, and it's actually quite nice out still outside.
Interesting.
My motor runs on a higher potential than the Bedini device. So I like to run my device preferably at 50 volts. I actually just purchased a little circuit that will allow me to get it over 100 volts. So my motor, I would say, runs more on the Joseph Newman device than anything. So I find the higher voltage you can put into the coil, the higher the reactive power generation happens in the coil with the piezo. And, Jeremiah was saying,
Did we lose you?
Oh,
We
lost
lost him. Uh-oh.
Oh, dang.
Wow. And Setneck, $22. Thank you so much.
Wow,
for the
Setneck, thank
support.
you. Epic.
A very generous donation.
Yeah, he wasn't kidding, man. Everything really does help.
Man, I don't know. He just disappeared, though. So in the
Yeah,
meantime,
and-
we'll wait for him to pop back in.
It was sadly it was a bit late tonight start for both Carly and Gerald. Planned on joining. Tried to. Oh, we got Mike back. Mike back with Mike.
Here we go.
Mike next to Mike.
Welcome
There we go.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
We got
Where did I
Bernie in
get
the middle. I got the mic to the left of me. I got the mic to the right.
Where did I get cut off?
A good solid minute ago.
Okay. Basically, my motor, I would say, runs more on the Joseph Newman principle. I'm using a lot higher voltages into my motor, where the Bedini device stays around 12 volts. From what I've researched with Paul Babcock, Jim Murray, what they're doing, got to get up into the 40, 50, 60, 80 volt range before you're going to see significant power gains, especially when you're playing with reactive power. And that's what's happening inside my motor. Now, I also have the piezo in line with that coil, which also helps boosting up the frequency. And Jeremiah was even mentioning there could be very well a phase shift going on as well. So, yeah, it seems to be working. I got a new circuit in now that should be able to get my voltage up to 100 volts. So we'll see what happens with that.
Nice. That's awesome. How's the water system going these days?
Right now, that's kind of gone black right now. I cannot talk about that right now.
Really?
Yeah, I can't talk about that.
Fair enough.
That I can explain offline.
All right then. We are going to be doing more of the electroculture and the different experiments with agriculture, more of the monoatomic waters, the colloidal waters. Colloidal water being the water that you get fresh water from dissolving the monoatomics back into the water that you then use to water the crops, also known as ormus. And then, there'll be some that I actually take some of the physical ormus or monoatomic metal material and put into the soil of a couple of the trial seeds, and then there'll be others that I use the colloidal water from the tops to water them consistently, and then there'll be other seeds that I just use the normal tap water that I pour into this the monoatomics to make them and make the water.
Oh, I might want to mention too, the device I'm doing, if you look at Bedini's old videos, he shows the waveform that his is creating, and his is creating more or less an impulse spike, where my waveform is way more extended. It's like it's I guess the time between the spike and the actual drop, that's extended significantly. And I actually have some pictures of the actual waveform when I put it on the scope, and it's quite different from what Bedini was doing. And I think it has to do with the reactive power that I'm utilizing in the motor, right?
Nice. Right, and we'll have to go fully in depth and plan another episode of Year of the Coil there, Mike, to fully demonstrate that, and as well with Gerald and Jeremiah in the next probably a couple weeks time from now, if that works with you guys, to do the Year of the Coil specifically on the coil tests.
Oh, Liminal's got something she's showing. Let's check this out. What's going on here? Ooh, man, this is like Breaking Bad at home.
So each of those have a specialization tray. The one on the far left is her experiment that she'll be starting later tonight.
Can you imagine like the feds show up and she's like, "But they're Rochelle crystals," you know?
those are magnets underneath the tray. I know there's no ferrous compounds in Rochelle salt, but I figured I'd give it a try because if you want salt with ferrous compounds in it, it's pretty expensive.
Interesting idea.
Yeah, dysprosium salts is one of the things that we've been looking into. And I really, really want to work with dysprosium because it has magnetostrictive properties, which means that in the same kind of way that these Rochelle crystals are piezoelectric, meaning when you pass electrical charge through them, they change their physical shape.
Right.
Well, dysprosium salts do that with magnetic fields. So they'll change their shape in response to a magnetic flux. You could wrap a coil around the outside without actually contacting it, and it would then change shape as a response. And when I combine those two technologies of both the magnetically reactive and electrically reactive crystal, I could probably get a really, really interesting curve. So what I did last night is I installed this LED strip by rewiring it. It was originally designed for 120 volts. I just simply bypassed a couple of nodes here, set it up for 12, and then there's this little push button. All this stuff is just adhesive taped up. So when you go ahead and close the door, which I'll back up and do now, it just shuts off, and very minimum thermal energy. So it won't increase the temperature in here, but we want to know what the temperature is. So let me go ahead and get up close, take a look inside some of these trays, what we're looking at here. So these are slower precipitating solutions, and with the use of that laser, you can see, and I'm actually going to probably bypass this light here. Let's see if
that's beautiful. So
that
also
crystal
because
is-
the crystal could make, you're using the crystal to make speakers, it makes me think about sonication with crystal growth as well, because if you put a subwoofer in here or something, that could be affecting this. But sorry,
that's why we're growing some really, really, really large ones, because we want to try to get bass out of them as well.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. The idea of how crystals that would be growing in nature would be affected by other crystals that are vibrating is pretty interesting. You know,
How'd you get them to be square? Is that
They
the
just
shape they naturally grow in?
naturally.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they're
you
naturally rectangular.
you started with a tiny little grain that was a square little grain, eh? And then it became a little larger.
Yep, that's right. So on the top of this tray, we can actually see some of the seeds. So these little pieces here are called seed crystals, and they are a total pain to pluck out. Her and I haven't gone through the whole process of getting good seed crystallization yet, but she certainly knows how to use them and place them. And if I can, that is a little itty-bitty seed crystal. You want the crystal, the seed to start out really small by comparison to the size that you grow. So some of these are really, really, really tiny. Yeah, there we go. I mean, really tiny. And that's the idea, is the smaller they start out, the less of their original matrix that doesn't quite line up with the current saturation point will actually result in a better quality crystal. For example, these...
Oh, we lost you.
Oh dear. Every time.
Secret
Live
sauce.
science. This is real science.
Okay, yeah. This is me attempting to use a Samsung phone. I hate this thing because it's got that edge screen feature, which means that the touch sensitivity wraps all the way around, and I'm not used to that at all.
But you gotta admit the camera's pretty good.
But yeah, the difference in the clarity, though, with these little ones, you can really see with these little ones that they are absolutely perfect. And with these larger ones, they do have some striations because they grew a lot faster. All these were started within the same few hours of each other yesterday. So the ones that got really large and the ones that grew really slowly are just different saturations of the mixtures. And they've all been growing in the same environment at that 28 degrees Celsius.
Right.
And it's been pretty temperature stable in there. So that's basically how that process is set up now. You set the water height to exactly what you want for the crystal thickness. And then you just simply leave them the heck alone and make sure that you don't get precipitation or dropout or other issues that can happen if you don't control your seed insertion very well. Like, you don't want to disturb it too much when the seed goes into the solution.
It really does seem to matter where you drop it into your what would you call
Tray.
it? Your tray, yeah. I've been pretty good about getting it right smack dab in the middle for some reason.
I have.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've got on the bottom here a few other things.
Have you made a large crystal?
So this is crap alum, as in, store-bought alum.
Do you want to highlight that with the light up here?
Yeah,
so we can
I'll move it up here. So there's
you can see the discoloration.
there's a little pyramid inside there. You can see that's kind of growing. But this stuff is super dirty, and the only way to clean it up, because I've already filtered this thing pretty well, double filtered it, but it's not going to clean it up. And so the only way to fix it is to crystallize it, purify it by crystallization. So this is alum, and alum allows me to grow geometric structures. This is Gauber's salt, and it's used for thermal energy storage. And so first I've got to do the same thing, purify it by crystallization, and then redissolve that and try to crystallize just something from a large seed. And Gauber's salt does not like to form a large singular cluster. That's one of the issues with it. So this will be interesting too. This is also kind of fascinating. So it's actually changing color now. Now it's green. It started white, and just kind of sitting out, it is changing. So this is the Rochelle mixture with monoatomic gold that was fully dissolved, and of course it's dehydrogenated now. So the peroxide is deactive, and it's turned back to water. And this has been heated and somewhat evaporated. But yeah, I have a feeling that green is going to actually go through a series of different color changes. Probably going to go to purple. Probably going to go to brown.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Correct, you're correct on that.
But anyways, I wanted to see if I could get monoatomic gold embedded into the Rochelle mixture because of its claimed properties. And these are a bunch of other just, what I would call junk crystals that at least have been washed. And so those are Rochelle crystals that didn't make the cut. A lot of these were just seeds that got out of control, kind of self-started, and then just ran away in other trays. And I didn't want to disturb them, so I just waited for the end to pluck them out and toss them into this beaker while I'll redissolve them. Yep, so that's about it.
Epic, guys. Like Liminal and Jeremiah, the next level alchemists. And wizards and esoteric gold. Mr. Mike, another fellow advanced adept alchemist. Do you want to go into some of the David Hudson patents and stuff?
No, not tonight.
Right,
but
not tonight. Or anything else to add in? Have you been working out in your lab, good sir? And
I want to take some clay, and because crystals grow in clay, that would be fun to take some clay and put it in some kind of a glass and put some voltage to it. See if we can grow a crystal in clay. That'd be cool.
I absolutely love that idea. That's extremely smart, man. That's cool. We will definitely have to check that out. And then mixing some of the monoatomics in with the crystals too, I want to start trying. And that's the next question.
Esoteric gold. You said once you could make red mercury.
Say that again?
Oh, sorry. You said once you can make red mercury in the chat. I was just kind of curious about how.
No, I've never made red mercury. But I made something
like a red monatomic.
No, I've never made that, but I've made a green monatomic gold, which is its natural form, according to David Hudson. But I know it was monatomic gold and it was dark forest green, and so I did an experiment with my mercury, and I put. Well, I guess I've shown my photos before, but I put it into some mercury and boiled it for a couple days.
Do you mind showing him again? Do you have access? Are you on your computer by chance? I just love seeing your work.
Yeah.
Yes, I gotta post Esoteric Gold Mike's channel also in the chat for everyone. His work is underrated, a very, very good alchemist and chemist of the alchemy.
Do you see it?
There we go. Thanks.
Can you guys see it?
Yes, sir.
So I put the green gold into the mercury liquid and then boiled it for a couple days, and it turned red. And the only thing that's in there is gold and mercury. And so I'm thinking it's red gold, which is a form of gold that is produced by the alchemists. Anyway, I wish I knew, because I accidentally didn't have this top on with wire, and it's what's it called? It's grease. Got to grease these top glass things, and the grease had sort of gotten a little too hot, and so it finally popped off. The grease allows it not to pop off. So and if the grease goes bad, you have to have a wire on it so it doesn't pop off. And it popped off, and then I came back several hours later, and remember, this is monatomic, which means it's like gas. It's really light, especially when it's energized, and it basically just all evaporated, and I came back and it was just mercury. So I was pretty bummed, but I'm going to do that experiment again. So anyway.
Right, that's why we so desperately need to get some mass spectrometers.
Spectroscopy.
There we go. I can never freaking pronounce it. Say it.
So this is also it. I got it to turn green with a different experiment. This is bismuth and mercury, and basically once you boil it for about several hours, maybe a day, the bismuth turns green, and that's exactly, if you read the alchemical literature, it talks about it. This is the garden. They call it the garden. And after a month, maybe actually like 2 months of boiling this, it starts turning black, and then it goes through all these different stages, and eventually all this mercury turns into another element. Something, I don't know, who knows? But anyway, is
it magnetic, whatever it turns into?
I didn't try any magnetic tests on it, but I have the powder. I scraped some of the green stuff off at the top, and once it comes out of heat, it turns gray again. So it's literally an energetic thing. So the more energy that's in it, the more it separates, and that means the light going through it changes. So
that's pretty amazing, really. I mean,
once you turn off the heat, it literally just turns gray within an hour. So anyway, that's why you're not supposed to let your fire go out.
Right? And it's awesome because you're replicating, improving, verifying lots of the ancient alchemical procedures, texts, and practices.
Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. How do let's see. Actually, you know what? One of these other times I want to show you my website and the let's see, it's called lattice light sheet microscopy, which shows how cells really take energy in, and it's pretty cool.
Yes, please.
Let's see.
Why have I not heard of this before?
We'll do a show another time just on health.
100%.
Do you guys see this video?
Still your pictures right now. I think you might have to hit reshare it, or there might be an option that says switch tab, but it's still the pictures that we're seeing right now.
Okay, so let's see.
Maybe just hit stop share and then redo. Yeah.
How do I share screen?
And then hit present again.
Present
at the bottom.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, having some bugs with StreamYard recently as well. It's just a little weird sometimes.
Oh, there we go.
So you see this cell with? Do you see my hand? My
yeah, mouse? Absolutely. The mouse.
You see this? This is a white blood cell, the thing that cleans your blood in your body, and it's all that's junk. See, did you see that tornado of energy?
Yeah.
That's
look at that.
And this is the most advanced way to see the body is on an energetic level, and it's called new lattice light sheet microscopy. And so I guess all we would basically look at is how the blood is flowing. This is current, and 90 degrees from current is field. So this is actually field energy, and it's basically, I relate it to the same field energy that the sun puts out and plants capture. That's why fresh, raw, organic food is medicine, because it gives energy to these, which is what keeps you healthy. But anyway, we can go into that on a whole nother program, because I have so much information. This website, I made this whole site, has articles. I wrote all these, has videos. I mean,
yeah, do you mind posting the link in the private chat? I'll share
awesome
it with the
stuff.
live chat for everyone. This is epic.
This guy needs to be in prison, just so you know. Anyway, I'm just joking.
We're all in prison, bro.
I would vote for, yeah, I agree, probably.
But this is my life change.
You help make sure that we're all in prison together.
Yeah, I guess we should all get along. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll do this some other day. There's so much information. Yeah, anyway.
Thank you for the brief introduction for it. I look forward for a full episode on it. It's pretty
absolutely
epic.
Yeah, stuff. We'll learn how to be healthy and heal the body. Anyway.
Sorry, I just have to take a call from the wife for a second. Xirtus, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where to go from here. Is there anything else you wanted to present, or should we like maybe wrap it up early?
I'll be good. Just Jeremiah, let me know. Taryn, 1 second, honey. Does anybody else have anything?
Anybody else you wanted to share?
I think we got a pretty good.
Yeah. I can show my cool new sunglasses. Check these out. These are Ray-Ban Meteors. You see, yeah, they don't make them very often. I guess they come out like once every other year or something for a day.
Yeah, well, now we can get some fancy plasma sputtered coatings on some custom lenses for you.
That looks good. What's this over here? Exotic
I think
propulsion
Jeremiah got, or
is this some graphene?
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Let's zoom in here. I think you're muted.
Yes, I was indeed muted. So 4 very important materials. The first one, I got this cheap tantalum. It was in large granules. So I stuck it inside a coffee grinder and got it down to a nice fine dust, which now takes up 1/3 of the volume that it did before. It's quite dense. And that's why you go to Goodwill and pick up a $5 coffee grinder, so you can stick metals inside of it and smash them up to little tiny pieces in like 2 minutes flat. So tantalum is a gravitational isotope. Not all of it, but of a large amount of the nuclei have a spin magnetic moment, which is accessible as a gravitational isotope. What that means is the inertial mass and the gravitational mass, which today's physics consider to be absolutely locked to each other and completely unmodifiable independently, even though they technically are 2 different figures in the mathematics, because they're known to have a strong possibility of being different under certain substances. Each of these things has a high quantity of spin isotopes that are accessible, so that when electrified, in this case, electrified with a high potential, and in strontium zirconate's case, both of these, this is a +9 half spin for the strontium, and the zirconium is a +5 half spin for the naturally abundant parts of those elements that are accessible. Then we have tungsten carbide powder. Now the carbon's not really helping anything here, but the tungsten is a really important isotope because it's both a large half spin value and it has a positive charge. And then the last is cinnabar. So this is very finely powdered raw cinnabar ore, and that means it contains all the materials that the mercury is normally bound to inside the rock, and it's also somewhat soluble in certain types of acids. So this is a particularly interesting material, which when I combine all of these things in the right layers and assembly will allow a both vector force and an inertial mass increase with a gravitational mass reduction. And when I combine all those factors together, what I'm hopefully going for here, if I can get it to crystallize out properly, is a very interesting type of thrust, which hopefully will just simply need to be charged and then continue to persist for quite some period of time with a reasonable amount of force.
Okay.
There is one more important ingredient, and I'll just briefly show it.
No worries, brother.
What are you going to do with that stuff?
The more learning, the better. We got, a good half hour left.
I'm going to find a crystalline matrix and basically crystallize it all into a single material. But there's one last ingredient that we won't talk much about. And so...
And also about turning it into the battery, right? Like the next step, if you want to describe that.
Yeah, so it ultimately needs an energy source. And inside these flasks is what I am hoping to be that energy source. So instead of having to electrically stimulate it or oscillate it, I may be able to directly irradiate it from the inside of the lattice. And that means it should basically release its own electrons. And then all I need to do is clamp it between a fixed magnetic field, and our beta particles will go in one direction and our alpha particles will curve in the other. And we just need to collect them through the crystalline lattice, which the germanium that I have, which I did not show, but I also have a raw block.
What was in there?
And that's going to be the semiconductor that allows it to pass the energy through.
Was uranium in there?
I should not probably confirm or deny that.
He's like, maybe. I love it.
Well, so Jeremiah, you and me talked a while ago, and have you had a chance to do any of those experiments with your ore?
Which one specifically? Remind me again.
Running water through what's it called? Leaching the ore to see if any of that white powder that I collected comes out of your ore.
Oh, well, I did one better and just, what you were looking at there is basically a rock. It's a rock now in a flask, but
you're doing nothing illegal, man. You can do all this, and so yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, I should be able to extract it out, and I noticed it separate in layers, and that's what I'll be hoping to do. Is I think each of those materials is going to leach out at a different pH, and so I just wanted to drop everything out flat out so that I would be able to work with at least something that was a powder, and then that's going to allow me to hopefully separate it out by using various solvents. I know, like for example, nitric acid will form uranium nitrate, which is perfect for kind of removing the nitrogen, easy to take back off and then just get it out.
So the way I look at it is, believe it or not, uranium. I've talked to a bunch of these old miners and these owners of these mines on their land. I've talked to them. And so these uranium beds are actually in clay beds, and you can actually. My belief is that uranium forms in clay beds, but that's not. We don't need to talk about that. But basically, if you can get some of this clay and fine material to come out of solution, you could possibly grow some kind of crystal. I wonder what kind of crystal would grow out of monatomic uranium or diatomic uranium.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to find out too, and precisely what the goal is here. I need something that can get all the right materials in a lattice, and that means it's going to have to be a crystalline lattice that's very forgiving of contaminants. Like for example, Herkimer quartz has a load of carbon inclusions, and that's actually the reason for why Herkimer quartz is found in that one unique location, is because the ideal conditions for producing quartz were already present, but they would normally need to start from a big seed, so you'd find quartz in clusters. But in this case, especially with Herkimer, the carbon inclusions actually act as seed points when the quartz is, when the raw material is basically there and available for it to start crystallizing. And so it does have a quite large acceptance for inclusions. And we already know quartz does this naturally on its own as it crystallizes, because you can, get pink quartz or amethyst or all these varieties of basically quartz mixed with some other element. And it's worked its way into the lattice, and it doesn't really change the lattice all too much. I mean, in some cases it's pretty extreme, but for the most part, I mean, quartz is going to grow the way that it likes to grow, and it's wonderful that it traps all that stuff. So now the question is, what kind of crystal can I grow in a controlled apartment environment where I can trap all those materials that I want into the lattice?
How about pure uranium powder and see if we can get a uranium crystal? I mean, the ancient literature talks about the fire crystals that sunk Atlantis. And my belief is that they're actually, some what's it called, radioactive monatomic material that they were able to make. So anyway,
I could envision that, like from the monoatomic zinc crystals that I made last winter in that moon video I put up, and that I've showed that like they oxidized back into pure monoatomic powder. It was crazy, and it was out of zinc silver. So I don't even doubt that. Like that's a fascinating idea.
Yeah. So if you need more ore, don't forget I have a friend who owns a mine. So
I do need a lot more ore actually. So yes, I would very much like to see if he's willing to ship a box full of ore.
No, I would have to do that myself. I have to go get it and then ship it to you. So
okay.
Yeah, we can talk about it later.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Especially if I don't know if you have a Geiger or whatnot to get some pretty hot pieces, but obviously the more
Sure.
Azurite's pretty hard to get, but there are some forms that you find out there that are really, really concentrated already, and that just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, no, I have a Geiger counter.
Be safe, gentlemen, please.
It's not as dangerous as everyone thinks. I do have a lead-lined box with everything inside of it. And
it's not as dangerous. In fact, it's quite harmless until you process it. So.
Okay, that would make sense.
And it's not even harmless then, unless you you actually eat it. Energetically, it's only toxic when you when it goes critical. So anyway.
Yes, this is not health or medical advice, ladies and gentlemen.
Definitely not. And always use personal safety equipment. And
you definitely want to wear masks when you're like crushing it up and stuff. So
if you have Pika, there are probably safer rocks for you to chew on.
Yeah.
It's not a good time to grow crystals if you're going through the teething phase. So, yeah.
Speaking of your Rochelle salt crystals, what have you guys tried, or is the next step trying making them in the same solution but adding some monoatomic gold or some monoatomic elements that are dissolved into the solution? That
actually, the next 3 steps are first off the monoatomic gold. That's going to be happening later tonight. The second one, which we're going to be doing at the same time, is crystallizing over that magnetic structure she created, and I'll be testing with an egregiously large magnet as well, just with a single field instead of a sort of a hallback type field like she has arranged. And the third one is to electrify the entire dish with a reasonably high voltage, probably around 20,000 volts, and see if I can electron deplete it. And then simultaneously, of course, I'll have to grow another tray where I electron saturate it. And so I could just have 2 different trays on the same piece of foil, and the 2 different trays of the same batch mixed up at the same level, and then just see what the difference in potential is between how they grow. Notice if there's a difference in the speed or in the crystalline lattice structure or in defects. What I'm predicting is actually it's going to cause a whole bunch of seed crystallization near wherever the charge gets injected and cause all kinds of problems. But we'll see what actually happens.
Cool.
Well, that's what it's all about, is science and the results of these experiments and what's happening.
Only one way to find out. Electrify the hell out of it and see what snaps.
You should electrify a piece of uranium with a strong field and for like a few weeks and see if it intensifies its radioactivity.
I can guarantee you it does. It's called stimulated beta decay, and you never really read much about it because it's all locked up, and the links to the patents have been pulled down. And I got like 100 documents on nuclear batteries that are basically direct converters, not these freaking joke nuclear diamond batteries that are using thermal energy like some old freaking 50-year past NASA tech, or those that use little phosphors to illuminate a solar panel at like a fraction of a % of total output. I mean, let's face it, the uranium is already pumping out alpha particles and beta particles. So what's that mean? It's pumping out protons that have no electrons to balance them out, and it's pumping out extremely high speed electrons. That's your beta emissions, and those are flying out at incredibly high velocities. And the great thing is, because they already have some velocity, all you got to do is apply a magnetic field to twist one of them in the right direction and the other one in the left, and just have them hit electrodes. So the protons, which generally come out in the form of helium or an H2 and 2 neutrons, well, those 2 protons are going to want to both grab all the electrons from one of the plates to equalize out what they are lacking. And when the electrons hit the other plate, well, they're going to provide the electrons that the helium needs. So you just simply use this entire mechanism with a passive magnet sitting there. And the only catch is this: an isotope is going to pump out radiation in all directions. It's not going to be picky about which way it puts it out. It's not like a ion beam or something like that, where you actually get a nice thin beam out of it. The only way that you generally get a beam out of it is by blocking off 99% of it and putting a tiny little window there. Well, that's not what we want. So we can use the electric charge and polarize it to force most of the decay to happen in one direction by creating more motion through electron excitation within the lattice. This is one of those simulated beta decays, which is absolutely forbidden stuff to post anything about or put documents about or share diagrams for, because it could actually equal a nuclear decay battery that can use normal uranium from the ground instead of having to have this refined crap. And you could even theoretically use thorium for this too. And you can sit there and just generate power for say a few hundred to a few thousand years with the same exact device. Virtually no deterioration. So this is one of those things that, of course, we can't have that. We're not allowed to have that.
I think the elite, they have miniature reactors that they sell to these wealthy people.
I wouldn't doubt that for a second.
My friend said that, just so you know, my friend said that he used to actually talk to the governor of Utah once a month in a meeting, and they were working on one. And yet they sell it only to people that are way up there and have connections and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, there's a reason that so much of this stuff isn't extremely regulated. Think about just thorium. You can go dig in your yard and get some if you need it, because it's in the dirt and it's everywhere. But you want the waste product of all these metal manufacturing industries? Hell no, that stuff is federally regulated. They got to know exactly where it's going and who's getting it. Why? Thorium can't be used for weapons. Can't be concentrated strong enough. It doesn't actually contain a lot of these.
Right. Thorium,
pieces.
I'm glad you bring it up, because it's like there's so many conspiracies about thorium, but really they're probably all true, and it's like the clean, non-weaponized nuclear material, is it not?
Right, exactly. You can't weaponize it. It doesn't. Even if you try to fission this stuff in like a salt reactor, right? The great part is you only add as much of the material into the salt as you want that allows it to react. So if you want a neutron absorber or something like that, you're just going to inject the salt with whatever you want. And so if the salt stops moving, then it can't react anymore because it runs out of it. And so the thing just goes, it doesn't ever go critical. It just goes in the other direction and cools down, which is kind of awesome. So yeah, thorium really there's no reason to make it so restrictive to prevent people from accessing it for experiments and development of new types of ways to utilize this hugely, hugely abundant resource that's freaking everywhere and is available in massive, many-ton quantities as a waste product from the metal industry. So the fact that we aren't allowed to access it because it's radioactive, and this big fear of everything that's radioactive at all being completely, forbidden and taboo in society is kind of absurd, because there are a lot of things that are radioactive that are not going to kill you or hurt you. Bananas, for example, are the famous ones now, thanks to some YouTube videos about how radioactive bananas are. And so it's just this whole thing is ridiculous. The amount of fear and whatnot around radioactivity.
Yeah, it's about fear, and so the more fear, the more they can extract financially from the public. So,
and then it justifies the regulations that say the common man is not allowed to work with thorium or gain it in any kind of reasonable quantity. Sure, you could try to refine it out of dirt in his backyard, but the amount of effort that'll take compared to the fact that it's just available in huge quantities already and basically nothing is being done with it is absurd.
So just so you know, the metal is dangerous. Once it's processed, you definitely don't want heavy metals in your environment, but the radiation's not dangerous, but they make you scared so that they can take they can charge a lot more money to get rid of it or protect it.
Well, what the thing is though, just in the form that it's already coming out as this waste product, it contains thorium and some other junk that they don't want in their metal. So it's got a lot of other stuff in it, but it's thorium rich in general. So they could just pack that basically into a bunch of billets using a hydraulic press and sell it that way, where it can't powderize, it's not going to dust off, it's already in a nice little form where it's, you know, somewhat safe to transport because it's all compressed. And so again, there are a lot of industrial solutions where the addition of just a few pieces of machinery at the metal manufacturing facilities, which are already filled completely with machinery and all the utilities to run it, could produce yet another product that, if the government would allow it to be sold, could have tremendous benefits in industry and power generation.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it's all. Evo's on your channel, by the way. What's up, dude? We haven't talked since we chatted.
Yeah, welcome, Master Evo, brother. Good morning. I actually sent you the link to join this current live stream. I guess that's where you got the YouTube link from. Feel free to join in, or we can plan a next one together, good sir. Love your work, my friend, and Jeremiah and you, Master Evo, need to do some bifilar collaboration experiments live here one day.
Yeah,
bifilar coils.
Yeah, we should. That could be a good time. I mean, I've got like 30 of them sitting in a box behind me, so.
When are you going to put that together, Jeremiah?
I put it together in a few different configurations.
Well, if you have a box of 30 of them on right now, why don't you show that so we can try to bait Master Evo to join on? Just, you know, try to bait him on with 30 bifilar coils. I don't.
Oh, jeez. Oh.
Just kidding, but we love your work, good sir. Welcome.
You're awesome, Jeremiah.
So this is one box of bifilers in various sizes and configurations. This one is a split reversed double bifilar, and so it with the same length of wire flips and goes in the opposite direction. So I can basically treat this sort of like a hallback plate and pinch the field loop between these 2 points on the winding. And so as it's phasing, my quarter wave is going in and out. I can reverse that back and forth. So what I can do is basically create sort of a Z pinch event right between these two coils at the center as the two phases collide into each other. And I can also phase synchronize them so that one is slightly behind, say by a quarter wave, and then operate it that way. And this is part of a levitation system that I have been working on for quite some time. These are what most of the bifilers in that box look like. They're just very classic Tesla pancakes. You could pretty much throw this up against the picture and you're going to see the same thing. Now that one, he actually has 32 windings. A lot of these I chose 28. But yeah, it's a whole box full of those. And then of course I have some matched helical resonators, secondary coils. And then of course I've got a whole bunch of other coils.
I need a coil.
What do you
we got him to turn the sound on. You saw enough bifilar coils. Good morning, Evo. Welcome.
So then, of course, we've got the box full of grav inductor parts, which include the double bifilar stacked hemisphere coils, and our internal pancakes and column coils, which are also counterwound bifilar, which means the wires cross each other at an angle.
Jeremiah, do you have a way of measuring the field that these put off?
I have several ways of measuring the field, and
like a device, not through the current, but actually a device you put next to it.
Yeah, well, I have a little magnetic field detector probe that I hook up to the oscilloscope because to me, readings on a screen are basically useless. That doesn't help me at all.
You need to measure it from the side
display,
of
and
it.
so the oscilloscope is what I prefer to use because it's not going to give me some average number. It's going to show me what's like happening as it's happening. Right. And so here is one of the PEMF systems. So there we go. Okay, so it's stand this up. I haven't got it bolted down, but we've got a rotary spark gap, and that fires this huge capacitor bank, which are all these are high speed, low ESR polypropylene snubbers. They're 1.2 microfarads at 2,000 volts, I think, a piece. And then we have a pre-filter stage that takes DC output from this this full bridge, and then also biases it with another final output diode to save the other two chains, and that goes through this inductor here, and that inductor then filters into this capacitor bank. So this allows this entire huge capacitor bank to discharge through one of the many bifilers that it's designed to pump. And so some of these are for therapy, and some of these are for generating huge impulses. And so what's interesting is this spark gap can fire and discharge this bank. Well, this bank acts perfectly fine, and this circuit does not act shorted. And that's being done here by the many turns inductor, and then through this isolation diode and filtered by this capacitor bank. It allows this to operate independently by some inductive isolation, so that I can continuously charge this thing at 100% duty cycle without ever having to worry about what happens during the discharge cycle. Then, of course, we've got all kinds of other coils and various balancing capacitors and whatnots hanging around the lab, but not as interesting as some of the other combination projects that are going on. The crystals, combined with the right coils, combined with the right electric fields, all are adding together to basically make something akin to a Star Trek warp core.
Right. So, and like we started off tonight, you and Liminal showing the most recent Rochelle salt crystals you're growing, and then using it as a speaker, and that so want to get video symphony set up of a crystal speaker with the plasma flame speaker and the Tesla coil speaker arc 3 together to make some epic 5D music. Would that be at least?
Jokingly, maybe some future rings with fluorescing dye mixed in, so you can wear them at the rave when you're partying.
And you forgot about all the fun with gas bulb.
How strong are those crystals anyway? You seem to be handling them very gingerly. So.
Yes, if you wanted to snap them with your fingers, you absolutely could put it between your fingers and snap the thing in half. They are not strong because they are a hydrated crystal. So there are certainly some major improvements in the lattice structure that I'd like to look into, and just considering the way that this crystal is formed and the materials it's made with, I'm pretty sure it's the potassium that's doing most of the piezoelectric action here, and the way that it's bound up against the sodium with a slightly different charge, I think, is giving it that sort of birefringent property, and allowing it to produce that response acoustically to an electrical stimulus, or vice versa. Obviously, these things make excellent microphones as well. If they make good speakers, they're going to make good microphones. It's pretty much invertible. So we want one that's a lot stronger, and we're looking into ways to crystallize a slightly different compound, maybe one that doesn't exist yet, and see what we can do. So, did I lose you?
Nope, we're still here.
All right. Well, that was probably about it. I mean, we have a lot of experiments going on. We're going to get to the gravitational isotope stage, where I can actually grow a crystal which responds gravitically to the stimulus. But all this is just kind of practice work leading up to an optimization for that process, and figuring out exactly how we can formulate new mixtures that don't currently exist, or the only information is available on, to serve this purpose for gravitational and propulsion function. All right, Bernie, I would say that probably wraps us up for the night then, if you guys think so too.
Yeah, my mom says it's my bedtime. No more TV.
Sorry. All right, I'm still here. Sorry, I was trying to show off some purple monoatomic or diatomic zinc. yeah, we are at 1 hour 47 minutes, and it is been an epic, stellar show. So much new science tonight. We will do this all again next week for sure, and if not sooner, depending with Gerald. And he wanted to show off his new, I think it's over Unity, super efficient alternator system that he did, as well as some more of the electroculture with his coils. Evo says, working with capacitor discharges now using parallel MOSFETs to switch. Caps are small, and I don't discharge into a coil. Fascinating. I will have to check it out. All right. So, yeah, I've gone over, before we end here, I've put in the live chat. First off, Esoteric Gold, Mike's channel, excellent work, as well as for those wanting to follow Liminal, here is Liminal's channel, but she is doing a lot of the work with Jeremiah. So
I have yet to post some videos, but if you guys would like to subscribe, go ahead.
Exactly. Start following Liminal.
Content to come.
And then more of your guys' work together pretty much can be found on Jeremiah's, or
yeah, pretty much just there.
Yeah, cool. All right. And then, of course, Xirtus, BurnEye, and Crypto Alchemist channels that we are live on right now. And thank you, Simon, Charon Earthling. Is it Sean?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. And
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
It was
Thanks,
fun.
everybody. Peace
Thanks
out.
for listening.
Epic episode.
Yep. Thank
Peace.
you.
See you on the next one.
Later.
And AI outro we go.